And we're live.
That's what it says.
My guest today on PhD, he's the assistant director of a sober living house, former gang member, and now the leader of the sober gang. He's one of the top 25 sober influencers in the US, and his TikToks are glorious. Justin Calloway. Hey, buddy,
What's
what's
going
going on?
on, brother?
What's going on? How you doing?
I'm living a dream, my man. Living a dream. Glad to
It's
be here.
it's good to see you. Yeah. Well, first off, I want to say happy birthday and thanks for letting me join your birthday celebration of the night. That was awesome.
Thank you, man. I truly appreciate that. Thank you for coming on there, man. That was a good day. I mean, it was a fantastic day. For most of the day, I got to rest and relax, and then time with the family later that evening, and then got to kick it with my TikTok family. So it was a beautiful evening.
And then I saw you got some ink done. Some what'd you call that?
Yeah, yeah, some ink therapy.
I love
Got
it.
the sober gang right there, little
I
ink
love it.
therapy.
Awesome. So yeah, and congratulations on being named one of the top 25 sober influencers in the U.S. How did that happen?
Bro, I didn't even know. I don't know. So I got a message in my messenger saying, "Did you see you made a list of top 25 of?" I was like, "What?" And then someone sent me the link and I see my name there and I'm just like, "How did this even happen?" I had no clue. Like I was blindsided by this. And I'm not gonna lie, I like instantly started like tearing up and like the emotions started coming up. And I'm like, who even did this? I don't know what I did. Thank you. I just wanted to start giving like a Grammy speech, like in the middle of nowhere in my house. It was, man. And there's so many people like, on TikTok and stuff like that and other avenues that should be on there. And I just like I was extremely humbled, you know what I mean? Because so many people are influencers out there and it was just truly humbling and I was hey man it was beautiful, it was glorious.
It was glorious, yeah, for sure. We'll let people in on the glorious inside joke right now. Um, so yeah, your TikToks. Let's talk about TikTok a little bit. So you got on
Yeah,
TikTok how long ago?
no, it was actually like October, right when I first started to get on TikTok. My son was like, "Pops, you should check these videos out and this and that," and he showed me some of them and I started laughing. I was like, there's some videos on there that made me laugh. So I made a little count and it wasn't even sober OG at the time. I can't remember what it was. And so I get on there and then yeah, I start running into some people that are in recovery. And I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, there's people talking about recovery on here. So I dig a little deeper. I came across like B Magic and Recovery Mike and Recovery Sal, APTV Peeps April. And I'm just like, these people they're amazing. They're like making recovery look cool. I'm like, I got to start being a part of this. So I started like following everybody. And then one thing I was like, you know what? I was like, we need to start celebrating people in recovery, especially the newcomers. So I came up and I was like, what song could I use to make someone, get into it? And I was like, Macklemore. Macklemore was a big influence on me, when it came to recovery because he talked about his struggles. He talked about his fight with recovery and his music. And I was like, that song, Glorious. I was like, us being sober today is glorious. Like that's the biggest word I could think of, like how can I describe it in nothing but glorious? So I do the glorious song and I put people's dates up into my TikTok and I just celebrate the shit out of them things, man. Like, and it brings me so much joy, to
And
just celebrate.
yeah, and that's how we met. Because I mean, I would have never met you, and I
Yeah,
mean, I stumbled across TikTok kind of by accident as well. I was doing some research for work. I'm like, where did everybody go? Because my Instagram account at work was dying, my Facebook account at work was dying. I'm like, maybe they're on TikTok, and I kind of pitched it to the work to say, hey, let's do a TikTok account. They're like, oh, I'm not sure about that yet, but maybe. So I did. I just built an account and I put a couple, videos up. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm seeing all the sober stuff, and I'm like, this is insane. And then I put a video up about wanting to go live for my soberversary on February
yeah,
22nd, and to celebrate. And you did your video, and all of a sudden I had like maybe 50 followers. And all of a sudden I have like 1,000. I'm like, this is insane. And the community is so strong, and everybody's
it is.
so supportive, and it's just a beautiful place. And pandemic times,
Right.
I mean, how would we ever would have met? Like the two of us sitting here today on, on this live stream and podcast is, it's infallible that we actually would have ever met in person. And so TikTok brought people together, and I mean, it's keeping people sober. It's crazy.
It's absolutely amazing, and it's speaking like when I first, yeah, especially during this pandemic time. So when I first got into recovery, I've been sober since May 9th, 2010, and so I'm coming up on my 11th year. Like I was this dude from the streets, you know what I'm saying? And to be honest, when I came and moved into a sober living home, it wasn't many people like me. And I'm like, man, I was like, I was like, this is not, nobody's going to respect me or know my story or care about my story. And then I started going around the rooms and it was total opposite people that I would have never met in real life that accepted me and started to show me love and started to show me, you know what, our stories are similar. Even though we come from different backgrounds, our stories are similar. And that kind of goes, then the pandemic hit, right? And so
Mhm.
people that are freshly in recovery are like, they can't get that. And then they come on TikTok. And then they see somebody that they would never meet in life or somebody that comes from a different background that has a similar story. And then they start to be like, oh my God, yes, this is where I belong. Even though I feel like an outcast at first, I've now found a home. You know what I mean? And this is why TikTok is so important because you can branch out and do so much stuff when it comes to this platform.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It blew me away, and I had no idea. I thought it was a whole bunch of teenagers dancing. And I mean, and dancing like you dance in your videos, and I've done a couple one of dancing. But I mean, the whole point is like it's a community builder, and it's just it's an amazing place. Let's reel it back a little bit, and tell me
Mhm.
about Justin as a kid. What were you like as a kid?
I was a very happy, joyous child. You know what I'm saying? Like actually in my neighborhood, which was rare, I had both of my parents. You know what I'm saying? I had my mom and my dad, which in my neighborhood, that just usually wasn't the case. There's usually a single mom type of atmosphere. And they brought me up in the church and they taught me morals and they taught me this and they taught me that. And I was a very happy kid and I just loved everybody. I just loved life until um I was about 13 and the kids that I grew up with started to go on a different path than I did. And they started joining gangs. And I mean, that's just how our neighborhood was. But since I was like this little bubbly kid, you know, that's not who I wanted to be. So they ended up bullying me, like terrorizing me, like jumping me every other day, and then we all lived in the same neighborhood. These were my old friends, you know. So I'm starting to see them, and every time I see them, I'm getting beat up. I'm getting beat up. And eventually one day, I was just crying and talking to my mother, and she was like, she didn't know what to do, and I talked to my dad, he didn't know what to do. Um, and then they sent me to this one Christian thing for the whole community, and it's supposed to be for the whole community. Well, guess what? They showed up there too, and it was the same old thing, and I started getting beat up. But this time it was different. So another group of young men saw they were jumping me and started fighting with them. One of them picked me up, brushed me off, asked me if I was okay, and I went running, running and told somebody, and then my mom came and picked me up. Well, then a few weeks later, I go to my cousin's house, who I hardly ever see, and I see like four of these kids there. I mean, they're the same age as me. I call them kids. They're same age as me, and I'm like, "What are y'all doing here?" Come to find out, my cousin was the leader of the rival gang that was beating me up. And I start hating with my cousin, and I start, realizing that they aren't no longer picking on me because his gang is a lot bigger and they're a lot stronger. And so they're full of fear of my cousin. And in my head, that's what I wanted. I wanted people to fear me because I was so afraid.
Mhm.
I wanted to no longer become the prey. I wanted to be the predator. So with that, it was hard to do because that's not how I was raised. I was raised with morals. I was raised with standards. I was raised to be loving and kind. So fast forward a little bit, alcohol
Mhm.
came into play, and it was easier to become that character, you know, and easier to become that type of mentality when I was drinking. When I get drunk, I could take a fist fight and it was nothing, I'd get beat up. And so eventually though, that character, now that alcohol has taken over. Like I no longer am in control whatsoever. I had a oh we could I don't know how much you want to get into, but it's this is a whirlwind of life.
I believe you. I get it. Yeah, no, like I mean, yeah, like I'd love to hear more about it for sure. Like so you're in a gang and you're 13, 14 years old and you're
Yep.
started to drink.
Yep.
And when did you find that, like, what was your consumption levels like at that age?
Starting off, it wasn't actually that much. You know what I'm saying? It almost kind of was a weekend thing. You
Mhm.
know, it was a weekend thing. So, and that's when we'd go and to the teenage clubs and, I'd get drunk and start a fight here and there. It wasn't until about 21, 22 when I could actually go to the liquor store and start buying liquor. And then my friends, they sold drugs, like just keep it 100. I didn't sell, I sold guns, just being honest. That everybody knows my story. And we started getting money, and now we're starting to go to the club, and now we're starting to go to the club from Wednesday to Sunday, and we're just drinking, and we're just drinking, and we're just drinking, and it starts to become just part of me. And then about 25, I even stopped doing that. The drinking got so bad to now where I'm just waking up, I drink, I go to sleep, I drink, wake
Mhm.
up, drink, pass out. And I stopped hanging with all the homies. I stopped being social. I'm homeless. I'm living with my sister, basically. I come in and out, and about 25 is when it consumed me, just to be honest. But yeah, the drinking didn't really start to get heavy until about 21.
Got it. Yeah, that's crazy. So you're still in the gang at 20, 25,
hmm
24,
hmm
25. So how'd you find your way out of the gang?
So I was about 28, and this didn't help either. I was just getting crazy, and my mom and sister at the time lived in Bloomington, Indiana, which is the home of IU, right? It's a college town.
Mhm.
So I go away and I go there, and I'm partying with I'm like living the college dream, not going to college. Um, then it really, really started taking off. So I lost everything there. I come back to live with my other sister. My homeboys are now like we're almost 30. They're living their life. They've pretty much got out of the gang. They've grown up. There's a lot of times people have that blood in, blood out aspect. That's not sometimes in gangs, but that's not really how a lot of people just get old. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? A lot of people just get old or they're dead or in prison. So the remainders just get old and get jobs and stuff like that. So what happened was on May 9th, 2010, it was Mother's Day, which is crazy because this coming up, May 9th, is also Mother's Day. It hasn't been since this night. So it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning, and I heard a voice say, "If you do not stop, you will die."
Hmm.
And tears. Like I still like, bro, I still get chills
Hmm.
when I think about it every time I say it. And I heard this voice say, "If you do not stop, you will die." And I called my mom up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, "Mom, I need help." I was like, I need help. I don't know what to do." And I didn't know this, but when my mom was living in Bloomington, she had neck surgery, and she actually got addicted to opioids and pain pills. But she had been sober and going to recovery, and I didn't even know this
Wow.
until I asked her for help. And she says, "I might know how to help you." And she introduced me to somebody, and he said, "Well, I suggest you go detox first," which I did. I went detox that day, and that shit was rough. I don't know if people know about alcohol and detox, but whoo, it is not cool. It is not cool. And so I was there for a few days. Listen, hats off to Canada, like for real, because their system when it comes to helping people is amazing. So I went to detox for 3 days, and they're basically like, "Okay, you don't have insurance. Guess what? Boop boop, you go." And
Hmm.
I'm like, I don't think I'm cured. I was like, I don't think this is over. What do I do now? You know what I mean? And so my mom got me into a sober living home here in Indiana, where I'm from, and I moved in, and I just connected. And I was telling you earlier, man, like I kind of felt out of place at first. Like I'm just street kid, and there wasn't a lot of African Americans that were living there. I literally, it was me and one other cat, and they weren't people weren't from the streets like I thought they were from the streets. And I was like, this isn't gonna work. This isn't not gonna happen. And they were so kind and caring and compassionate. And the director at that time that was working there was just the coolest dude. He made you feel like, he doesn't care where you come from. He made you feel loved. And I embraced that, and I took that and I ran with it like my life depended on it, because it did. So I went to the meetings. I worked what they call the coffee bars, where you sat back there and poured a coffee for everybody coming in. I went to the picnics. I went to the conventions. I followed all the old timers, man. Like I sleeched onto this, and it just stuck, man. And I was like, this is it. This is it. This is what's going to happen, man. This is recovery, and I'm digging. I'm for it, And I started to do my spiritual thing, and my mind and ease started to come back, and Justin started to resurface. That character was starting to become less and less, and I was starting to become more and more. And I felt so good about that. Yes, I had some PTSD and some pain and strife and some shit that I did while in active, drinking and active gang banging, I guess you want to call it. And but I learned how to deal with that in recovery, and it was a rough road. It's always a rough road, and I don't. It gets easier, but if anybody, for those who are fresh in recovery, if anybody tells you this is an easy program, hmm, the program is easy, but the life you have to do, the things you have to change, the way you have to put in that work is not. You have to put in some serious work to maintain sobriety. You know what I'm saying? Yes, and I believe in all kind of paths of recovery. You know what I'm saying? Just because I never got into drugs, I never did anything like that, but I believe that, many people can get sober in different paths, but you're gonna have to fight for it no matter what path you take.
Wow. So let me just a little recap. So
Yeah.
go to your mom. She's like, you need some help. She knows where to go to get some help. End up at some meetings, yeah, and
Mhm.
then end up at the sober living house. And do they take you to meetings, or are you just, or they're just encouraging you to go to meetings?
Well, this house, they had 2 meetings a day in the actual house. So they had 2 meetings a day, plus they encourage you to go to outside meetings and meet new people and find out uh, different things that you feel comfortable with. Some meetings I didn't feel comfortable at. It's kind of like religion. I mean, personally, I'm a believer in Christ. I personally don't go to church. That's just not for me. You know what I'm saying? So some meetings I love, some meetings I don't. So that's why they encouraged us to go and find what best feels right for us,
So
and so
okay.
yeah.
I get that for sure. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Um, so so now you work at Road to Recovery, which is a sober living house. Was that the same sober living house you were in?
No, so how that started is after, so I lived at it was called a 13 step house here in Fort Wayne. It's actually the second oldest sober living home in Indiana. I lived there, and then after I left there, I just kept coming back. I just kept, hanging with people and talking to the new guys and this and that. And eventually the house manager there was getting ready to retire. So the director came to me. This is like, I think, want to say 3 years in. I was 3 years sober. And he
Wow.
was like, we're looking for a new house manager. And I was like, okay. You know what? Yeah. Yeah, I would love to do that. So I started working for them as the house manager. So I worked for them for a while, and then my director now, it's actually a lady. So her and her husband, this is another crazy story. Her and her husband, he was an alcoholic. He was sober at the time. They opened up a sober living home. He goes back out. He goes back out and drinks. So they got, this at one house, they got 14 guys living at. And of course, they work with drug court. They work with community corrections. They work with all the judicial systems, and the judicial system hears that he's back out drunk, and they're like, we're not going to send you people if your husband is, you know, a part of this. So she said, okay, you're divorced. You leave, take your shit, get the fuck out, and I'm going to run this halfway house.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so she divorced after 20 years. She got a divorce and this and that, and we and her had been communicating because, like I said, she had just started this, and I had been working in a sober living home for a while now, and so I would help her out and, you know, let her know this and let her know that, and eventually she came to me. She was like, "I'm in need of assistant director. Would you consider leaving there?" And I talked to the director of the halfway house that I was working at, and he was like, "You know what?" He's like, "That's a big move," and he was like, "You're ready. You're ready." You know, he's like, "But will you do me a favor and become a board of directors for the step house?" And I was like, "Of course, of course." And so I became on the board of directors of the house that I grew up in, and then the assistant director where I'm at now. And a few years, it was about 2 years ago, I got off the board because they like to switch it around, and I get that. We like to keep things fresh. But I still go there 3 times a week, you know, and sit and talk with those guys because that's where I came from. It's like a firefighter that saves you out of a fire. You know what I mean? I will always have love and an admiration for that house. Like it just will always be a part of me. So I'll always go back to the house. But yeah, so that's how I got into working at Road to Recovery, man.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah.
Like, did you ever imagine when you walked into the sober living facility to live there, you'd be working there and then running another one, you know, and then sitting on a
No,
board of directors, you know,
no.
like it's just like it's so amazing how it actually just unfolded for you.
It's the things that are happening. I always tell people I am so grateful I was an alcoholic. They're like, what do you mean you're grateful that you're an alcoholic? I said, if I wasn't an alcoholic, I would not have the joyous and happiness and freeness that I have today of my job, of my friends, of the, you know, the family that I've created. I'm so glad I went through that hell. I am so glad because it has brought me to a place that I couldn't even imagine. Dude, 2 weeks ago, I had lunch with the mayor and all the little politicians here in my town, like a former gang member is doing that type of thing. Like it's just mind blowing of what recovery can do for you, you know, and bring you. Like it's just it's just it's glorious.
It is glorious. I love it. I love it. You know, it's so true. It's funny when you say grateful alcoholic. I think it was like my second or third meeting, and someone introduced themselves as a grateful alcoholic. I was so
Yeah,
mad. I'm like, man, like, how are you grateful? This is the worst thing ever. I'm like, you know, and now I'm one of those grateful alcoholics as well. You know, I sit here and go, man, my life is just so much better without
yeah,
the alcohol in it. And it's just, and it's, yeah, I'm so grateful just be, and you know, connecting and, you know, connecting with you. And like, I mean, so when you're
right.
at the lunches with the mayor, they're like, hey, Justin, or are they like, so bro, G, come on over? You know,
No,
what's the,
it's Justin. It's
oh,
Justin. It's definitely Justin. You know, it's like yeah, the police chief was there, and that was weird. You know, like back in the day, like of course, Bumphead, but it's yeah, it's just it's just so amazing. Yeah, I'm so grateful. Like I sometimes feel, not to take away from anybody else, but anybody that's been through any type of life trauma or addiction or like mental illness or physical illness, when we beat those things, when we overcome, like we
mhm.
just appreciate life just a little bit more, I think. You know what I'm saying? Like we've walked through hellfire and now we're in this glorious time. And I just, you know, people that haven't experienced any type of trauma, and I'm not saying I want anybody to experience trauma, but when you overcome and you defeat that, that is a whole nother level of living, man. Because like you look at every day as a blessing. My shittiest days, I've lost. So my first year of sobriety, I lost my uncle. You know what I'm saying? On Christmas Eve, you know, and I was bawling, I was crying, and I went back to the sober living home that I was living out, and they had a meeting about gratefulness,
Mhm.
right? And it was they were talking about how we should look at every day as being grateful. And I started thinking about it, and I was grateful that he was in my life. I was grateful that I have these great memories with him. I was grateful that he had taught me so much, and I was grateful that he was no longer suffering. He had cancer, and so just going to that meeting right then and there just uplifted me and made me feel better. The second year I lost my best friend. He just died. He was 43, just up and died abruptly.
Mhm.
And same thing, I had this recovery community to surround me and give me comfort, so we are blessed, man. We are blessed to have this type of community, to been through these type of traumas, because it's made us so much stronger and appreciate
Mhm.
life. That dude, when I moved into that step house, I literally had a garbage bag, two pair of pants and four shirts, and maybe one pair of socks. That's literally all I had to my name.
Mhm.
Today, I'm married. I have a home, two vehicles. I if my car breaks down, guess what? I can fix it.
Amazing.
People don't think about something like, if something goes wrong in my house, I can handle it. I've been blessed with that. Am I rich? Nope. But I'm rich in positivity, and I'm comfortable when it comes to my finances because I'm no longer spending it on alcohol or dumb stuff. You know what I mean? And so I have a strong wife who is knocking it out the park when it comes, it's just like, man, the blessings. And you just look at each and every one of them and appreciate each and every one of them so bad. I have a relationship with my kids, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna go back a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was, what was it? So he was born in 2002. My first son was born in 2002, and it was kind of the I wasn't ready to be in a relationship, and to be honest, I was not ready to be a part of his life. I was out there drinking, gang banging. So I was in his life till he was about 2 years old, and then I just became a deadbeat dad. Like I didn't. I'd always be like, "Yeah, I'm coming through. Yeah, I'll come see him," and never did. You know what I'm saying? And then also, I met another young lady, and we got together. My second son was born in 2006. And we actually we tried to stay together, but my drinking. So here's a funny story. I forgot about this. So she wanted to move to back where she was from. And she was from Logansport, which is a small town in Indiana. Her dad name was Earl, and he was a state trooper.
Oh, not good for you.
So when I moved in, Earl just already had this look like, I lasted 2 weeks there. I lasted 2 weeks because I was just all I did was drink. Earl's like, "What are you doing? You haven't looked for a job since you've been here. Basically, get the fuck out of my house." You know what I mean? And so yeah, but I also lost touch with her. You know what I mean? And so I came back home. I didn't call. I didn't. So a few years ago, my oldest son mom calls me, and she was like, Anthony's been asking about you, you know. Um, he's 14, and I don't want to deny him, but I got to talk to my parents because her parents basically raised him. She was in the army, and
Mhm.
she went over like overseas, and so that whole time she was overseas, he was with them. And of course, they didn't trust me. They didn't like me, which they had every right not to,
Mhm.
you know. So, but a few years ago, she called me. She's like, Anthony wants to be in your life, and I'm like, and I go and I know what's about to happen. And I go and I talk to him and I'm like, what's going on, man? He's like, what's up, Dad?
Oh, wow.
I have not seen him or talked to him since like he was 2 and he was now 14.
Wow.
Now 14. And he says, what's up, Dad? And I just start bawling. I say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He was like, I forgive you. I just want to love you.
Wow. The the gifts of sobriety.
The gifts of sobriety, right?
They
And
don't
so
they don't have to be big gifts, but that's insanity gifts.
they're huge. They don't, they're those type of moments are huge, and it's because of sobriety, And so me and him have a great relation, and my youngest today, I got back in contact with them, and I have great relationships with my kids. It's
Mhm.
just the things that you get back, man. If you put the work in, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, you've definitely
Whew.
done the work. It's yeah, I mean, you can just tell. And it's yeah, I know
Right?
like I mean, you don't go from living in a sober living house to running one without doing some work and people noticing. So kudos to you. And
Right.
and it's funny, I'll bring it to maybe a little lighter note. I saw your TikTok when you found a cat. And you there's a cat in the sober living house. Someone smuggled in a cat, but I guess it's better than drugs. But maybe fill us in on like
Yeah.
how the story started and how it ended. Maybe.
So, dude, and it went crazy viral. Like, it was mad crazy. So every day I go do checks and check the rooms and make sure they're supposed to make their beds. We teach accountability. We teach structure. So they're supposed to make their beds. They're supposed to do this and that. So I go in this one room. Everybody's bed's made except for his bed. I'm like, what the hell? So I go in there and I look. I'm like, nah. I go make a TikTok real quick. I go in my office because I'm like trying to wrap my head around this. I'm like, I went to go check this dude's bed, and this dude has a cat just laying in the bed, and it was so cute. Like when I was talking to it, like stretched its little paws. That was like perfect cinema. Like I didn't even plan, and it was so cute. So I'm like, at least it's not cocaine.
Exactly. It's not drugs or alcohol. That's good.
But in my mind, I'm like, because we don't mind. Like if somebody wants to, we have a cat that stays there. But if someone wants their cat to visit or their dogs to visit, we don't mind. Just let me know. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Just let me know. So I'm just like, how did he not think I was not going to see this cute, adorable cat? Not laying here, and it went viral. People's like, "What happened? Let them keep the cat. They need to have a cat. They need." I'm like, "We do." I'm trying to tell. I'm trying to tell 1,000 people that we do have a cat. I'm not gonna kid. It was his girlfriend's cat, right? It
Yeah.
was his girlfriend's cat, and actually they broke up, and so the cat did have to stay there for a few days. But the the cat and our cat did not get along.
Oh no.
Sophie was not having it. Sophie was like, bitch, this is my house and you need to go. And so we eventually found somebody to take the little kitten. But, you know, beautiful things like that people are like, are you mad at? I'm like, I'm not mad at him. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? It's no, of course I'm not mad. That I would love to find every single day, and God forbid instead of some type of drug,
Mhm.
So it's beautiful things like that do it. We have some hard times at recovery homes, you know, and I hate reading those newspapers and seeing past residents that just didn't make it.
Mhm.
But it's times like that, or so we have this one that he comes back, 3 or 4 times a week and gives back to the guys. Like that reminds me of me when I was living in the sober living home, and that one person, man, that's all it takes is that one person that we help. Not everybody might be there for the right reasons.
Mhm.
That's okay as long as we're planting a seed. Hopefully, we can help them. But when that one person comes back and you see the growth in them,
Mhm.
it's worth it. It's all worth it.
So I'm assuming you work with a lot of men in early recovery because that's what you do for a
Yeah.
living, right? And
Yeah.
you do it on a daily basis.
Yes.
Um, so like what if you can give one or some advice to people listening, like if you're getting into recovery, what
Hmm.
you know your best piece of advice you try to give these young men when they come and see you?
Support.
Support. That's it.
Support. That's the biggest thing. Yes, you have to have the determination. Yes, you have to put in the work. But it makes it so much easier when you have a sober gang behind you
Hmm.
fighting for you and with you. You know what I'm saying? To help us each keep each other accountable. And that's one of the biggest things. If you're doing it alone and you're constantly telling yourself you can't do this, you're not going to do it. You know what I'm saying? If you tell yourself you're going to do it, you have a great chance of doing it. But if you're telling yourself and all these other people are telling you that you can do it,
Mhm.
your chances of making it are extremely high. You know what I'm saying? So, and you just get different outlooks and you just get different advices and suggestions. And so for me, support and making it a lifestyle. Now, when I say a lifestyle, I'm not saying you have to, be a robot and this and that, but make it to where you do something once a day. I don't care what it is. Once a day that's going to help your sobriety, whether if it's just giving something back to a stranger, that's helping your recovery because you're getting out of self. You're not being selfish and self-centered. That helps you.
Yeah, no, it's so totally I mean, that's great advice for sure. Um, so the gentlemen that live in your house, are they in programming during the day, or are they like it's pretty much just free? They're free to do what they please, or they work, or
Well, they work. For one,
Mhm.
all of our residents have to have a job. Two, the majority of our guys are court ordered. There's a lot of court ordered guys, and so the courts they have to do IOPs and they have to go to meetings and they have to do this and they have to get therapy and stuff like that. The ones that are not, we try to hook them up with therapists and IOPs and stuff like that, so they have that same type of help. And then yes, they have to go to meetings. They have to first work a 12-step program. The reason why we do that, we just feel like it's a good foundation. Where after they leave, whatever path of recovery they want to choose. Now we never tell them, oh, you have to go to AA or you have to go to CA or you have to go to NA. Whatever you feel comfortable with, you pick that path. As long as you're doing some type of a program or recovery, if it's church, if you can find someone to be a mentor or something like that within church, yeah, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? So they have to be constantly, they are constantly working stuff in recovery. So we use structure too. You'd be surprised of how many people men can't cook. Like
True.
seriously,
Oh
like
yeah.
they or how to make a bed.
Mhm.
And we help teach them these things and finances. We so once a month we have a accountant come in that works at a bank and they come in and help guys with teach them how to work finances and teach them how to do this type of stuff. We have a place here called Blue Jacket where we have a partnership with. And Blue Jacket is they go to a 2-week course when it comes to figuring out how to do job searches,
Okay.
how to write resumes, how to talk to people when it's time to do an interview. They also give them 2 free suits. And I'm talking about brand new,
Nice.
beautiful suits. Yeah, they give them for free 2 new suits, and then they place them in the job force because they have connections with other people in the community because they know felons. It's hard to get a job with felons, so they place them in this program, and then they know if they see, hey, you went to the Blue Jacket program, okay, we're gonna help you out because you've gone through this. And so we try to go through all different type of avenues to make sure not just the recovery as
Mhm.
far as the 12 steps but as a whole.
Well, you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet when you leave there. That's the issue, right? You
Exactly.
can't stay there forever, but you have to be able to, manage enough money to pay your rent and, you
Mhm.
know, get the job. Because if not, it's just the cycle continues.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I've been working and recovery for the past basically since I got sober, right? So, and you see the cycle, and it's tough. Like, so you have to have all those skills before
Right.
leaving treatment or leaving the sober living house. And what would you say your typical length of stay is there?
6 months.
Okay.
It's a six, so it's a 6 month program. That's a minimum.
Mhm,
We do have one that's been with us for 2 years, but
mhm,
he lives in. We also have three-quarter houses. So after people leave and they still want to live in a sober environment, and it's fairly cheap rent. We put him in a three-quarter house, and he loves it. He's been with us for 2 years. So, but yes, his average is 6 months.
I love that term, three-quarter house. I've never heard it
Yeah,
before. So it's a
yeah,
halfway and then it's three-quarter because you're
yes.
almost there.
You're almost there. Exactly.
When you're paying your own rent or paying your own mortgage, you're all the way there. I love it. I love it. I love that term. Um, so you've had a lot of time working with a lot of men over the past 10,
Mhm.
12 years. Um, what programs do you find the most effective, or is it just something that's personal choice?
Well, for a long time, I always thought, I came up in a 12-step program, right?
Mhm.
So I thought that was the way. I was like, yep, it's the 12-step way or no way. And then I became a recovery coach and I took recovery coach classes.
Mhm.
And my mind started opening up a little bit more. And so I started doing more research and, you know, all the statistics and all of the different paths are pretty much even keel because it's up to the individual. You know what I mean? So I think it for me is the path that you most feel comfortable with, you know, and just like I said earlier, just like churches and things like that, or any type of people can judge you in certain 12-step programs because they think, people that are on medically assisted treatment aren't clean. But how can you say that when this person is living a truly productive life? They're not using drugs, they're not getting high. Some people do abuse MATs. I will admit that. But they're just not ready in their own mind. They're going to abuse whatever is close to them.
Mhm.
It's not the MAT, it's the individual. You know,
Yeah. What is MAT for people that don't know?
so medically assisted treatment is something like Suboxone or Vivitrol. It's where they kind of help. They give you a small dose, and it is like an opioid, and it kind of just tapers you off so you don't have those cravings.
Mhm.
And it's watched by a doctor. They give you the medication and stuff like that, and it helps them not go out and crave and want to shoot up needles or sniff whatever it is that they sniff, and it helps people.
Oh yeah.
Vivitrol, when they get the shot, they could do whatever drug they want. They're not going to get high. It blocks those blockers in their head, in their brain, and so they're not going to get high. So those things save lives. But people, old timers that grew up when none of this stuff was around, were like, "Well, we did it this way and it worked." Well, guess what? Times have changed. You know what I'm saying? We had 2020. Like some people need a little extra help. And I'm not going to knock that person for the little extra help they get. There was one guy, he was like, man, I would never trade one thing for another. I'm like, it's not trading that. I was like, wait a minute. Weren't you the same one that was using a nicotine patch to help you stop smoking? Well, yeah, that's a whole different thing. No, it's not. It's
So my
not
next,
different.
it's I don't think it's different at all. I think you're right, 100%. But what is the end game for people that go down that path of harm reduction? Like, do you think that the end game is abstinence?
It just depends. I've known the person that taught me recovery coaching. His name was Donnie. He had been on. See, back in the day, they had methadone. He
Mhm.
had been on methadone for 20 some years. 20 some years, and he was teaching recovery, going around the United States, teaching recovery coaching. He was living a highly, truly productive life. Some people might need it forever. Some people might not. Like I said, it's an individual thing.
That's yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's also medically assisted. So I mean, if it's supervised by someone that knows what they're doing, you
Right.
know, that's the way it's going to
Right.
go. So let's bring it back to the gang. What is the sober gang? I see the hat. So I mean, what is the sober gang, and where did sober OG come from?
So, me, I still work a lot in the streets. Not only when it comes to recovery, but I work with the youth when it comes to trying to keep them out of gangs and try to keep them on the straight and narrow. Um, but for me, like, I remember growing up in a gang, like, we were a brotherhood, we were a sister, we were a family, and it really was. And when it came down to fighting, you mess with one of us, you got to mess with all of us. And so I just took that negative type of gang and I just put it in a positive aspect that, you know, we're gonna fight to the death because that's what it is. If one of us is struggling, it could be to the death. So we are all gonna fight. We're gonna come together, rally around you as one unit, and we're gonna move and we're gonna push and we're gonna fight. So that's just that gang lifestyle was in me for a long time. So it's and it's crazy because I now some of my best friends are actually past rivals. You know what I mean? We've all gotten older. I also work with a um, place out of Chicago called United in Peace, and it's
Mhm.
a lot of the elders from Chicago. I haven't been there in a long time, of course, because of COVID. But it's all because I'm a former gangster disciple. That's what I was. And then you had Vice Lords and you had Cobras and Latin Kings. In the Midwest, we don't have too many Bloods and Crips. Like that's more of a West Coast thing. Um, but we all came together and we're like, you know what? We got to better our streets. So I went from gangster disciple, and now we've changed it to growth and development.
Wow.
Yeah, so we want to grow and develop. We were once part of the cancer in our community. Now we want to be the solution,
Mhm.
and trying to help those who are because it's still sad out here, and when it comes to the gangs and all that, especially in Chicago. We're about 3 hours away from Chicago, and I got a lot of friends from there, and it's still sad there. So that's the sober gang motto is look, we're gonna fight together. We're family no matter who you are. If you're in recovery, great. If you're not in recovery and you support us, great. We're all right in together, and we're gonna fight the stigma. That's one of the big things that we try to fight is stigma. You know.
Well, I know I didn't even know I got jumped into the sober gang. I got jumped in, and all of a sudden I had people sending me love from all over the country, like all over the US. I'm in Canada, so I mean, I'm like, who are these people? And like,
Yep.
it's so beautiful, and and to be part of a family like that, like I miss that aspect in my life. I burned it all down, so I didn't have that. And having that family in my 12 step groups and the people that I associate with now, um, that's what helps me stay sober. And I have a support system that I never had before. So we have the sober gang, and United in Peace, and they're helping youth in the cities of the United States, and like guys like yourself, I'm helping educate the youth that there's another way. Do you think the gang relation with drugs and alcohol is a big part of that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, a lot of my old homies back in the day sold drugs. Now which is weird because in our gang, and the reason why, like I tried to smoke weed in high school, right? But it just wasn't my thing. It made me paranoid. I didn't like it, whatever. But in our gang, it is one of the laws. Back when I was gang banging, you were not allowed to do drugs. If you got caught doing drugs, you were violated, which means you were about to get your ass whooped.
Hmm.
So I've always kind of been like someone that followed the rules but didn't follow the rules. It's kind of weird. But I never got into drugs, and a lot of my people didn't, but they proceeded to sell into the community. Um, and I think a lot of times people that are in gangs, it's just because of the environment. You know what I'm saying? And it's it's drugs, especially in the black community, right? When someone's fighting addiction or mental health in the black community, we like to sweep it under the rug. It's not talked about. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, that's your crazy cousin over there. He just does what he does, because it's for many years it was this we just went to prison. We never got the help, is you got caught selling drugs, even though you were using, you still went to prison. If this and that happened, you still went to prison. Well, now it's starting to change a little bit. We're starting to get a little bit more help in our community because people like me trying to fight. Like one time, the judge loves me, but she was quite mad, and I said, Your Honor, I said, there's 20 clients in here. I said, two of them are black. I said, what's up? Like, well, what's going on with this? You know what I'm saying? Or no Hispanics, like no anybody. It was 99% white. And I said, I get this. I understand, but we all need to help. This has been going on for a very long time in our community. And yes, we pushed it on the rug, and that's why stigma is so big. It's just like, oh, that's just that's just how they act. No, we need help. You know what I'm saying? This is a disease,
Mhm.
and we all need help. So I fight on that aspect too, man. It's just like, let's help everybody. Let's stop the addiction part of it. Let's stop putting them in jail. It's not helping. It's not helping anybody.
Yeah, we were talking earlier before this we started here, and we're saying that if you could take the same amount of money you spend on incarceration and spend it on treatment, what
Yes.
what would the outcomes look like, and how would that differ? Because at least you have a program. Even if it's mental health programs, because I mean, the statistics show that high rates of mental health and addiction issues are being incarcerated, and if you're not in there getting help, how can you break that cycle? I mean, and then education and stigma, those two things kind of for me go hand in hand. So I mean, educating people that it is a disease, it is a mental health condition, and it's not just a choice. Because for me, I lost my choice at some point. I
Right.
was choosing to do it at one point, and then I lost that choice, and then it became an addiction where I couldn't stop. If I took that first drink and I started, it was a train, and it was a train wreck. And
Yes.
so I mean, education, I think, will go a long way to break that stigma. Like, what do you think are some other ways that we could really break down the stigma and associated with mental health and addiction?
Well, one of the things, and helping when it comes to this is, before COVID hit, several of us would also once a month go into the high schools. And
Mm,
then we were planning on going into the grade schools and stuff like that. Starting young there, to talk about that, about the stigmas of, well, not even the stigma, but, unfortunately, like the media and rap and all this other stuff are pushing this onto our kids. Like, it's crazy. Like, it is ridiculous. So that being said, we go in and we try to help educate while they're still young. That's going to help stop some of the addiction problems. Better mental health for the kids, man. Like, going to the school psychiatrists and stuff like that. Uh, I don't, you know what I mean? I think
mm,
we need to wrap around, do a lot of more wrap around when it comes to the youth, as far as getting them health and start helping them with addictions. There is no underage or 18 and under medical assistant thing or addiction treatment center for any teenager here. Like, they have to wait till they're 18.
yeah, it's tough. Yeah, we
Like
don't have
that.
any programs either. We have a couple, but not many.
Right. It's more of a, they go to like the, basically the nut house, as they call it. But we should be having programs for them so
Mm,
they don't grow up, and that cycle, like you were talking about, can be broken earlier. As far as stigma, we just gonna have to keep educating our communities individually. I mean, it's just one by one trying to educate our communities. We need activists in every community fighting and saying, "Hey, you know what? These are your sons. These are your daughters. These are your employees and employers. So they're human. That, while they're in their addiction, or that's not them. You know what I'm saying? And so the more people we can reach, and the sad thing is, the way it is reaching people is
mm,
because everybody's being touched by addiction nowadays, where before it was in one little area, and
mm,
now it's starting to spread and everybody's being affected by it. So now people are starting to see, okay, it's not just a certain type of person. One of the biggest uh people who are now starting to become addicted is the teen athlete.
mhm. Oh yeah.
The teen athlete, because by the time they're 18, they've been playing sports since they were 7 or 8. Their knees and their elbows and their joints, they're having surgeries at 16, 17, 18. And
Mhm.
guess what they're doing? They're prescribing the shit out of all these pain pills. And guess who's becoming addicted now? And so now that that's happening, they're like, oh, okay, maybe this is a disease. Maybe this is a problem with big pharma and all that stuff like that. Maybe they're not just animals that just live in the gutter, and no, we are not that. You know what I mean? We are more than our addiction, and we just need to let people know that,
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. And yeah, as a youth, I was an athlete, and and it's funny you saying that, because I was prescribed an inhaler to help my athletic whatever, endeavor, so I
Wow.
could breathe easier. And I was like, this is great. Take 5 or 6 puffs of that thing, and I was, and it's funny because
Right.
I didn't think about that ever until I was at a meeting of 6 months ago, and I was like, man,
Wow.
that addiction happened early, and I didn't even know it. Like, it wasn't like something that I put two and two together till just recently. And I was like, wow,
Right.
and and it's not like I was even thinking. It was just like, it just
Right.
is something that I did. And so just that whole like predisposition to be addicted is, I think it's a real thing.
It
Uh,
is.
yeah. So I got one more big one for you.
Yeah.
What does unconditional sobriety mean to you? Because I'm going to ask all my guests on this.
Ooh.
Like, what does that mean to you?
Unconditional sobriety. That's a big one. That's a big one. Um, for me, it's like unconditional. It's just never ending, man. I cannot see myself. This is the best answer I can give. I cannot see myself living without sobriety
Mhm.
whatsoever. So for me, sobriety is everything. Sobriety is next to God, and I say next to God. For me, my higher power is my higher power, but He brought me to sobriety for a reason.
Mhm.
It's kind of like when those people say, somebody's trapped in the river and three boats come by, and that person said, well, God's gonna come and save me. Well, he sent three boats, my friend. Unconditional, it's like unconditional. I have to have it.
Mhm.
I have to. There's no way that I can live life without my sobriety, and so I will. If my wife got into the way of my sobriety, gone. If any of my family members, my mom, my dad got in the way of my sobriety, gone.
Mhm.
You know, my love is for my sobriety and my higher power, who those two are they're intertwined. They're in my sobriety and my higher power are intertwined. So without those two things, my life has nothing. It's just gone. So I will always put my sobriety first, no matter what, before anything but God. And that's times like, and my wife is so understanding. There's times when I'm at home and I get a call at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, either for work or just somebody else. I have a few people from TikTok, you know, I've had people from TikTok call me at 2 o'clock. Like, when I say I'm family on TikTok, I'm your brother. That means you can call me at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to answer.
Mhm.
I've done that several times. Now, this is a social media platform, so sometimes I have to tell people, you know, calm down a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, calm down. But I will always take phone calls. I will always be there for anybody that reaches out for help. That's another thing. That's unconditional love. No matter how you get to me, if you're on MATs, if you used to be on heroin, or you used to be an alcoholic and you smoke weed and that helps you, but you're living a life of happiness and joy is free, I'm here to help you. I'm not going to judge you. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And the same with, people kind of got on me because I had this whole thing. Some addicts that were like prescribed pills and became addicted, do they have addictive personality? Possibly. But some of them can drink normally. I've seen it. And
Mhm.
some people in the recovery community, like, well, they're not 100% clean or sober. How are you telling this person has been going for 10 years now and living a great life? Like, so unconditionally, I will meet you where you're at. I will help you in the time of need and never judge you. I will always love you if you're looking to better yourself, you know?
Well, I'm grateful. I was part of the sober gang now. I'm grateful that I found you and we've connected. And, I'm so grateful that you're just a part of this great community. It's unbelievable the support that you give so many, and you change people's lives every day, and you changed mine. And it's an amazing thing that we got to talk today. So let's tell everybody where they can find you. Let's start off with the merchandise. Where can you get a Sober Gang hat, T-shirt, all the stuff you got?
So if you go to my Sober Gang bio or link tree in TikTok, which is I believe it's sober.og. Gang, you go to that link tree and it'll send you to all of my different. There's a website for those who are out of the state of Indiana. If you're in the city of Indiana, you just go to the Wild Unicorn Design Facebook and you can get merch there.
Awesome. I'll drop the link for the merchandise, and also I'll put the link for your TikTok in the podcast description. Thanks so much for taking time to join me today and do this live stream and podcast. I'm grateful for having you as my first guest, and I'm just happy you said yes. And so I'm just super excited to have you here today, and I'm glad I got to know you a little bit better.
Thank you, brother. I truly appreciate it. I love spreading that joy and hope to others. Hopefully there's somebody out there watching that might be on the fence about recovery or sobriety. And listen, you can do this, and we are here for you. So thank you. I truly appreciate you, my brother. And I just can't thank you enough for the support that you've given me.
You're welcome, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you.